thumbs up, which I think means start the presentation. I'm not sure how much of my introduction you guys heard, so I'll just start over. I apologize if I'm repeating myself. I'm Sam. I worked in Washington, D.C. for self-resistant technology policy analyst at the Libertarian think tank. I got involved in Bitcoin back in 2012. I recognized as I was doing the research about Bitcoin that there wasn't really which I published in spring of 2013, and it was one of the first books available about Bitcoin on Amazon, and it actually did moderately well, which was fun. And I was always looking to write a second book about something interesting, because that was sort of a fun process. And I saw in 2014 dark market. And of course, everyone here, I'm sure, is familiar with Silk Road and what that was. Dark market was an attempt to make a decentralized Silk Road. And I thought that was really interesting. So when I saw Brian Hoffman fork dark market and create a project called OpenBazaar, I immediately reached out to him and told him, hey, I'm looking to write a book on the rise of decentralized markets. Can I interview you? I did. I interviewed him. And I was so sold on his vision for what he was trying to do with this, and the importance generally of decentralized markets, that I ended up joining the OpenBazaar team, even though I'm not a developer. I just tried to do anything I could to assist the project. After doing that for about a year or so, we had a decent amount of people involved, and we co-founded a company, OB1. Which has been the lead developer for the OpenBazaar, open source decentralized marketplace, ever since. I do some various other fun stuff. I'm a ham radio operator. Rodolfo Novak and I think were the first people to send Bitcoin over HF radio, which was a lot of fun. And there's some other projects I'm involved in. But I'm here to talk to you about decentralized markets. So, what is a decentralized market? I'm sure everyone in the audience recognizes that the word decentralized can be really tricky to define. I'm not going to include in this definition things like decentralized exchanges. I'm just going to define it solely as a market where people exchange goods and services. That doesn't have a central point of failure. So there's kind of two ways to define the way that I'm doing a decentralized market. One is purely physically, like in meat space, what does it mean to say a decentralized market? And more or less, it's a network of nodes that are using a shared protocol for commerce without a central point of failure. And I think all of them necessarily are using some form of distributed network technology. The two most common, sort of things that you see out there are things like distributed hash tables or blockchains directly. And I'll talk a little bit about markets that take each of those technical approaches later. And the second way to view decentralized markets is socially. So what, in meat bag space, what does it look like in terms of humans? And that's basically a community of people that are using a specific piece of software to engage in permissionless trade. And that, I'm putting forward, is really the point of decentralized markets, is permissionless trade. So what are the advantages of using a decentralized marketplace? Why do they exist? What's kind of their point? Well, as I said, permissionlessness is number one. Anyone can join or leave at any time. There's no central point of failure. I'm sure you guys already understand how that works, but Amazon can choose to let you use the marketplace or not. But with a decentralized marketplace, no one has that control over the network. That also makes it censorship resistant. So the data is either in a blockchain directly, or it's within a distributed network, something maybe like IPFS, that's what OpenBazaar uses. And because of that, it means the data is censorship resistant. No one has control of it. Another advantage is that it can be more private. OpenBazaar, for example, can use Tor optionally. The Particle Network does use Tor by default, and others do as well. It's more private also, not just because it can use Tor, but because typically only the people involved in the trade themselves are actually able to see the data. So you'll have like end-to-end encrypted data, and only the people involved are able to see that versus middleman platforms where they see everything. And then because there is no middleman involved and the trade is happening peer-to-peer between people running the software, it means there's no one in the middle to collect fees. So I'll pick on Amazon, being from America, but they typically charge, let's say, a 15% fee on what they sell. It changes based on category, but that's significant. And by having a decentralized marketplace, that cut is no longer exists. So why do we need them? I mean, okay, you can see some of those advantages, but generally speaking, why I think decentralized marketplace is really important. Well, to answer that, I think you have to ask the same question of why do we need decentralized money to begin with? Bitcoin, why do we need it? Well, I would put forward that Bitcoin's original purpose, and I think its most useful utility, is the permissionless electronic exchange of value, right? So it's something that's necessary for people to maintain some freedom that can't be taken away by large institutions, financial institutions, government. People need to be able to exchange value electronically and not ask for permission, right? It's easier to beg for forgiveness, permission. And the only way you can really make something truly permissionless is via decentralization. Money, and it needs to be decentralized to be permissionless. It's important to understand the next step above that, which is decentralized money is necessary for human freedom, but not sufficient. It's not enough just to have Bitcoin, because the permissionless exchange of value isn't happening in a vacuum. Or you're actually trying to exchange that value to some end. So if you're trying to use it for commerce, then your permissionless money, if you're only using it on permissioned platforms, all those benefits you get from decentralization are just wiped out entirely. So sort of as a thought experiment, right? Everyone here, I think, would agree Bitcoin is decentralized. So started accepting Bitcoin. When you are using Bitcoin to pay for things on those platforms, is it still permissionless? Is it permissionless money? I mean, the payment sort of is, but how useful is that if everything you do on the platform is monitored, can be censored, has a fee taken, right? Like all the benefits of Bitcoin are just gone. So if you really want on Amazon. There are 34 different categories for restricted products on Amazon. 34 different categories, it's not just 34 things, right? I mean, it is very high, and that's part of the reason we need decentralized markets. So yeah, permissionless money needs permissionless markets. looks like I'm back on. Okay, yeah, thumbs up. I'm not exactly sure where I dropped out. I'm going to go back a minute or so and talk about the state of decentralized markets. So I talked why they're beneficial, but what does it look like out there right now? In comparison to mainstream marketplaces, these marketplaces are pretty much non-existent. The amount of trade that's happening on them would be a rounding error on other marketplaces, right? It's not great news in terms of adoption for decentralized marketplaces. And I'll talk through some of the stats a little bit later. They also have a poor user experience overall. Many of them require you to download new software, which a lot of people just aren't willing to do. And it's really only accessible for people who are already comfortable with cryptocurrencies, right? These marketplaces are based on cryptocurrency, and that is a pretty significant barrier to many people out there. So the overall picture is great, but there is a small niche community that regularly finds them useful. These people are generally, I would put them in like the crypto-obsessed category. They're definitely true believers. Most of them are very privacy-conscious people. And a significant proportion of them are in gray or black markets, right? Because of the censorship resistance and permissionless nature of these markets, they do tend to attract people who need censorship resistance naturally. So there's a few different types of decentralized marketplaces. I have a few categories, and I'll just go through them now. One of them is what I call altcoin specific. Basically what happens, okay, this is my personal opinion, but these are basically boxes that are being ticked on a marketing checklist, right? Like someone puts out an altcoin and they're like, people are like, why would I buy your altcoin? And the answer is, well, because we have a decentralized marketplace. You know, it's silly. They're not really used. Most of them are barely functional. There's essentially no trade happening on them. The way they technically work is the data for listings and messages and whatever is actually usually hosted directly in the blockchain itself that's being used, which I don't think is a very good design for various reasons. But it is fairly popular to do. There have been a handful of what I would call serious attempts to build these things that aren't just marketing ploys. And I'll just name two. One is BitBay. BitBay has been around since I think 2014, since OpenBazaar has been around as well. And have some devs that I think they're not like trying to scam. And then Particle. Particle is actually I would say a moderately serious effort, even though it is an altcoin they're based on. Their researchers are very focused on privacy, and I think have made some good general design decisions. They seem fairly legit. Although, unfortunately, the market has essentially no traction, as far as I can tell. The second type of decentralized marketplace, I guess you could call it altcoin specific, but I'll just say this is ETH specific. This is Ethereum-based marketplaces. These are typically functional, like they usually work. They're not like a lot of altcoin marketplaces where it's effectively just like a scam. Unfortunately, they have essentially zero actual trade going on them. So I actually pulled up the DAP Radar website to look through the amount of transactions that are happening on these to verify that that's accurate. I'll talk through them very briefly. So there's one called the Origin protocol. For the past 7 days, it's had 2 users and $10 of volume. There's eFlance. There's actually a protocol called District 0x. Both eFlance and a marketplace called OpenBazaar both use that protocol. And they've had 3 users over the past week and 1 user over the past week. I mean, it's effectively they're not being usable. There might be some Ethereum marketplaces out there that are being used more widely. I couldn't find any, and I've never seen any. The last, there's another category of decentralized markets that I'm calling serious but failed attempts. One might actually surprise you. Bitcoin itself, the code base originally put out by Satoshi, had a decentralized marketplace built in. Now, it wasn't finished. It was an ongoing thing Satoshi was working on. And he later removed it from the code base. But it looked pretty clear based on the commits and what was in there that he was attempting to have a decentralized marketplace built on Bitcoin directly, which just never panned out. There's another attempt called Bit Markets. It was built on BitMessage. I don't know how many of you have heard or used BitMessage, but several years back, it gained a little bit of popularity, and they tried to build a marketplace on top. Steve DeCorte did a pretty good job on that, but it eventually was abandoned. And then DropZone. There's a guy named Miracle Max, a pseudonym, who tried to build a distributed marketplace on Bitcoin blockchain again. Krista Rose and others tried helping him out, but again, that was also abandoned. And none of these, BitMarkets was, I think, actually used, but the others never made it to production. All right, the last category is what I'm going to call successful markets, and I'm doing successful in air quotes, because, again, in comparison to mainstream markets, effectively no trade happening at all. And there's really, I'll go through three that I would quantify as successful. One is OpenSea, that is on Ethereum, so there is a successful Ethereum marketplace. OpenSea is a place for digital collectibles. And over the past week, they've had something like 1,000 users, right? Not really a crazy amount, but hey, there are people there using it. LBRY for digital content, they have their own blockchain, and they've seen a recent uptick, pretty significant. I don't have numbers specifically, but they've gotten a lot of users recently, especially because of the deplatforming stuff that's happening. And then the most successful is Haven. It is OpenBazaar and Haven, which is the mobile app version of OpenBazaar. I pulled some stats. Now, we don't have a great ability to collect stats on the OpenBazaar network. It is built to be private, and so there's a little bit of guesswork involved. We do run crawlers that kind of are able to see nodes in the network, but we don't ever know if we have a full picture. Regardless, something like between 27 and 35,000 users have used the OpenBazaar network in the past month. On average, over the past week, there's about 40,000 listings for different goods and services on the network. We don't know the amount of volume happening. So the way it works on OpenBazaar is the trade, details of trade are end-to-end encrypted in a Ricardian contract, which basically means everything you need for all the information you need for a given trade is contained within it's just a JSON document, but it's digitally signed each step of the trade. So anything anyone needs for the next step to happen has already occurred, is in the document, and is signed, so it's verifiable. It also allows for escrow. You can have a third party come in and moderate disputes and whatnot. But it's only the people that know about, that are involved in trade that know about it. So we don't have good insight into that. But based on some things we can sort of guess, we think at most there's a few $1,000s a day of trade actually happening on the OpenBazaar network. So comparatively small, but the largest decentralized market out there. So I think a natural question when you hear these numbers is, why haven't these markets gotten any traction? And the answer is the disadvantages of decentralized marketplaces. I talked about the advantages and why I think they're important, but there are significant disadvantages. One, it's far more technically difficult to build and run than centralized alternatives, right? And probably some of you in the audience have worked on decentralized systems, and you already know what I'm talking about. But if not, it takes developers who are knowledgeable in sort of a niche field of distributed technology, months or even years to find a decentralized solution to a problem that could be solved by just standing up a server somewhere, easily if you had a centralized approach. It's just much harder to work for. And quite honestly, there are some issues with decentralized markets that are just unsolved still entirely. Reputation is a really good one. Like a decentralized reputation, that problem is just unsolved, right? We have some ways to try to mitigate the problem on OpenBazaar, but it is far from a solved issue. And the user experience trade-offs are really significant. I already talked about the need for people to download unique software, which is a big barrier, and the knowledge of cryptocurrency. But beyond that, being fully distributed network means it's slower. And right, like there's tricks you can do. We use IPFS. OpenBazaar is built on top of IPFS, the Interplanetary File System, which is a distributed file system. It's a really cool project, and it's given us a lot of unique benefits by using it. But it is definitely slower in many ways than the alternatives, and fewer features. Right? Because it's hard to build things decentralized, because centralized marketplaces have had a, 20-year, 25-year head start, you're just not going to have the number of features that most people are used to on these existing marketplaces. Another problem, the marketplaces need network effects to be valuable, and it's really hard to bootstrap them. And this is true of any marketplace, right? Bootstrapping marketplaces notoriously difficult to do. But when you have these barriers, getting people on board is just really, really hard. And, everyone listening to this, and myself, might think, no central point of control, awesome, that's a positive. But for the vast majority of people, that's a negative, because it means if something goes wrong, you're on your own. There is sort of no backup. So for people that aren't crypto crazy, key management, data backups, all this stuff is just makes it more difficult. And then the last disadvantage is something that's kind of silly to say a disadvantage, but unfortunately it has become so. The disadvantage that you spend cryptocurrency on these marketplaces. Now, that was the whole point originally, right? Like cryptocurrencies should be spent. Maybe that's a controversial point of view, I don't know. But anyway, the people's viewpoints of what cryptocurrency is, Bitcoin specifically, have changed. Like when I first got started in this, and when OpenBazaar first started, Bitcoin was sort of, the cream of the crop, and it was digital cash, and people were trying to use it for commerce. And since then, a lot of people now want to hodl, and that's it. They don't want to stick to cryptocurrency. So it's less appealing than it used to be. Too many people. Okay, so those are the disadvantages and why we haven't seen traction. What does the future of these marketplaces look like? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I've spent 5 years on it now. I was almost 6 years on it, and I have some thoughts I'll throw out there, but it's really tough to predict. So one is there's this mentality of people saying, if we make the user experience better, that will lead to adoption. All we need to do is make the product better, and it will be adopted. I'm actually pretty skeptical of that. I think that adoption is only going to slightly increase as the technology improves. Because I point to evidence for that, of being that it's already good enough for cryptocurrency diehards, but most people don't use it still, right? Why is that? Like, I'm guessing most of you have heard of OpenBazaar if you've been involved in cryptocurrency for a while. But how many of you have actually used it? I mean, I'm not there to ask for people to raise your hands, but my guess is the majority of you have not used it. Even though you're a crypto diehard, it's still not being adopted. So it's, I'm skeptical that making it a better product is going to necessarily be more adoption. So I think real adoption only happens in a few specific scenarios. One is the status quo systems get worse than they are right now. And they can get worse in one of two ways. They can get more oppressive than they are now. And I mean, they're already, in my opinion, pretty bad. They're tied directly to the surveillance state, and that's bad. But they can also just get worse, like in terms of as a business offering, they're not as attractive. Just yesterday, I think Etsy announced a significant bump in fees, and like that pissed a lot of people off. They can get worse. The second scenario is like a shift occurring in how people view the status quo systems, even if they're not actually worse. People are just waking up to it, and I think it could happen. There is a growing awareness about Facebook and Twitter and YouTube censoring platforms, hating bad generally, and that might carry over to centralized marketplaces. I think it's possible. Another path to adoption would be an easy-to-use and private by default cryptocurrency, which could be Bitcoin or something else, getting significant adoption. And it only makes sense to use that permissionless money on private, decentralized marketplaces. So if we do really get adoption of like a privacy coin, or Bitcoin becomes a privacy coin, and people are trying to spend it, well, you need a decentralized marketplace to match the decentralized nature of the cryptocurrency. And the last path that I think you could see adoption of decentralized marketplaces is darknet market users get sick of exit scams and they adopt an existing decentralized marketplace, or they build a new one entirely. A lot of the users of these marketplaces are involved in darknet market trade. And right now, the state of the darknet markets is just absolute shambles. Exit scams left and right, no one trusts anyone. So to build a proper decentralized marketplace where you don't rely on market operators at all makes a lot of sense, and it's possible we'll see that adoption. All right, that is my presentation. So if you have any questions, I'm not sure how questions will get to me, but I'm happy to answer them. So thank you all.
Any questions? Who wants to ask them a question? Do I see somebody here? Yes. You might have to relay it. Yeah, shout it out.
Do you hear me? Hey. So I just downloaded Haven, had to see it for the first time, and looking through it, and all the items that you sell here are legal. Have you considered selling other stuff?
That's an interesting question because I don't know if that's true. We don't know the overall mix of licit versus illicit goods on the network because we don't have insight into the specific trade happening. We can kind of only guess. So that's the direct answer. I do think it's likely the case that the majority of goods listed are legal. I think that's definitely true. And people do it because there's lower fees and whatnot. There is actually a paper that was done by, I'm reading the researchers now, that talk about the type of trade happening on OpenBazaar. And it does appear that you can leave reviews on items. And if you look at the reviews that are left, it seems that darknet market items have more reviews than others. So that might indicate that those are more popular. Don't know. Sorry, can't give a better answer.
Thanks. Anybody else have a question for Sam? Any users of...
While we're waiting for another question to come in, I'll just state, because usually there's a lot of questions about, what about drugs and whatnot. OpenBazaar was built, OpenBazaar is a decentralized network, but it is also a protocol, and it was built from the get-go to be neutral to the type of trade happening. So while it is a fork of dark market done by Amir and others, or Eric as well, that was explicitly meant to be a decentralized darknet market, basically an alternative to Silk Road. That is not the case for OpenBazaar. It's meant to be a completely neutral protocol for any type of trade. People can use it however they will.
I have a question. Mainly because
Yeah, that's a great question. How much we challenge our mobile phones? A huge challenge. And our approach, there is a mobile app called Haven, which is essentially a mobile version of OpenBazaar. But there were compromises that we had to make for Haven to exist. And they're pretty significant. So Haven is available in both the iOS and the Google App Stores. And to comply with, for example, Apple App Store rules, we had to do things like not have any digital goods for sale because there couldn't be any cut taken for the Apple Store, so we don't allow digital goods to be sold. So we just had to cut out that entire category of trade for their platform. Things like no CBD or, of course, any marijuana or any of that stuff. Anything that's illegal in the United States can't show up at all, even in the search results. And so we had to, OB1 offers a search engine. We had to filter the results out of that search engine to make sure that Apple doesn't kick us out of the App Store. And you can't add other search engines in. All that stuff you can do on OpenBazaar, the desktop open source client. So there's all kinds of compromises we have to make. And from a technical perspective, immensely challenging. It's actually pretty impressive what we were able to do with Haven because it runs a full OpenBazaar node on your mobile device. You are an equal peer to every other peer on the network. It just happens that the interface, the graphical interface of Haven, has restrictions put into it by OB1, but you're actually a full peer on the network, just like anyone running OpenBazaar on a desktop application, and that was very difficult to achieve.
we have time for one more question. Anybody has another question for Sam?
I don't know if there are other questions coming in or not. I'll just take a moment to thank Eric for putting this together. I hope you all are having a great event. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there, but thanks for the invite, Eric. The question is, how does OpenBazaar make itself sustainable? And the answer is, it isn't. OpenBazaar is an open source project that doesn't have any business model at all. There are no cuts being taken from any of the trades. There's no fees to use it at all. It's just completely an open source project that makes a decentralized network, and that's it. Now, OB1, the company that I co-founded, was trying to monetize by offering services on top of the network. And I mean, to be honest, we've more or less failed. OB1 has lasted almost 5 years now, but it is in difficult times right now. I don't know how much longer it'll last, to be frank with you. So we put out the open source software and tried to monetize it, and thus far we have not been able to.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you very much for all your questions and listening to Sam's presentation. I'm personally quite thrilled about these developments. I do think they are important to making Bitcoin sustainable.
All right, I think that's it. So thank you all. I hope this was informative. Go ahead and check out my Twitter and whatnot. If you have any more questions, I'm always happy to chat about it. So hope you all have a great conference.